What are they, in your experience, common misconceptions around workplace conflict?
That it's bad. That is
Yeah.
the biggest misconception, that we don't want conflict. And on the other side of you really do need healthy workplace conflict, because conflict means I have an opinion, you have an opinion, I have a view, you have a view, and for some reason we disagree.
Mm.
In that disagreement is where you're going to get innovation, creative problem solving.
I create clear thinking and decisive leaders who can amplify their influence. Contact me to find out how I can help you or your organisation.
And today our guest is Karin Hurt. How are you doing, Karin?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome, Karin. Karin, do you have a favourite piece of music or dance step?
Favorite piece of music or dance step? My cousin sings in a band, a singer-songwriter band, and they have a song called Lemonade. And it's all about making lemonade out of lemons. And it's very upbeat and fun. And when I get sad, I just sing that a little bit.
Oh, that is so cool. It's funny how little things stick in your mind as well, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, this is going to be a very sad admission, but in I don't know if you've seen like the Finding Dory.
Yes.
Oh, and then whenever something goes wrong, she's always going, "Just keep swimming, la 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 la." And every time I want to go, "Just keep swimming."
It's not a bad mantra.
So anything happens, I just get to myself, "Just keep swimming, just keep swimming."
It sounds like you've had a just keep swimming kind of day, actually.
Yeah, yeah. But I can still laugh though, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Karin, tell me more about you.
So I run a company called Let's Grow Leaders, and we're all about really practical tools and techniques for human-centered leaders and leadership development programs that stick. I've written a couple of books, including the one we're about to talk about today. But I'm all about encouraging courage and inspiring innovation.
I love that. So I know you're about, unless I'm wrong, how to deal with workplace conflict in a kind of proactive way.
Yes, yes. The new book coming out is called Powerful Phrases for Dealing with Workplace Conflict. And then the subtitle really says what it's all about: what to say next to de-stress the workday, build collaboration, and calm difficult customers. So how do you get the courage to have the conversation you'd rather avoid? And then what are the best words to use to ensure that that conversation has a positive outcome?
All right. So that makes sense, because quite a lot of people, when they have conflict, is that they run away.
Yes.
So
indeed. We did this for the research for the book. We did this World Workplace Conflict and Collaboration Survey, which was 5,000 participants in 45 countries. And we asked people to think about a significant workplace conflict that they had in the past, and what advice would they give their former selves if they were faced with a conflict again. And that's exactly what they said. They said, I would stay calm and I would speak up, or speak up sooner.
okay, so when you're saying powerful phrases, it makes it sound to me like there's like a set formula. Is that really possible?
So, of course, you can't script conflict, because once you're engaging in conversation, you don't know what the other person is going to say. But what we do is we ground these conversations in 4 dimensions of productive conflict. And then we have 12 powerful phrases, 3 for each of those dimensions, that we know are really good ones in any conflict. And then the book is designed so that you can go to the table of contents. If you are in an acute conflict emergency, go to the situation you're facing, and then we give you some additional phrases for that. So the dimensions: connection. Are we connected as human beings? Clarity. Do we have a shared understanding of success? Curiosity. Are we genuinely interested in what the other person's perspective is and what's possible? And then commitment. Do we have a shared agreement on what's going to happen next?
Okay, then. So can you give me some examples of these powerful phrases?
Absolutely. Let's start with a couple of the GOATs. So we take a connection. So GOATs, greatest of all time, right? So start with a connection goat. One of my favorite ones is, I really care about, and then you say something that you really care about, them as a person, the relationship that you have, the work that you're doing together. And I'm confident that we can find an outcome here. So you are connecting to your purpose for the conversation. Now, of course, that only works if you really do genuinely care about whatever you're saying you're going to care about. And if your past behavior shows that that's not true, that goat is not going to work. But assuming you have good intent, that could be a very powerful one. For clarity, one of our favorite goats is, what would a successful outcome do for you? So, a lot of times people say, well, what does successful look like? And that is a very good question. But what would a successful outcome do for you goes one level deeper, because it gives people an opportunity to really hone in on their motivations. Curiosity. How does this look from your perspective? So just to be able to slow down and ask that. And then a commitment goat is, what is one next step we can both agree on? So even if you are in a big conflict and you have totally divergent perspectives on something, if you could at least get to some level of alignment on one next step, that keeps the conversation moving forward.
Okay, I like that. I like the question there, like, what would a successful outcome do for you? I like that. I tend to use that as a two-parter, though, in the sense that I like you said, that the question, what would success look like? And then this one, because I think for me, just the way my brain works, it helps me to see what the bigger picture is. And also if there's a mismatch. So sometimes people will say, this is what the outcome would do for me. And I logically cannot see how you would get the outcome they're looking for based on the first question. Do you see what I mean? So there's like a gap
Yeah, I hear you.
there.
Yes.
So personally, I prefer the two. The other one, I was like, I'm just being contrary, which is probably no big surprise, being the maverick that I am. And the one that says, I really care about whatever it is, I think that's really good. And I'm confident that we can reach a solution. I'm just wondering, because there's going to be people who are sitting there with their arms crossed where you say that and go, well, I'm not confident. And I'm just thinking, do we get ourselves like trapped, or is there like a secondary? Is that like an opener one, and then there's some secondary stuff?
I think that this is why we have a range. So when we you start with, okay, I am in this acute conflict situation.
Mm.
What is needed here most? Is it connection? Is it clarity? Is it curiosity? Is it commitment? And you're not going to that's why you have this menu to choose from. So, if you feel like that one's not going to work, then don't use that one. Another connection one is, all right, so somebody comes to you and they're really angry. And if the first thing you say is, wow, tell me more, right? So tell me more shows that you care and are listening, and it can help to de-escalate the conversation. Another one is to reflect back what you're hearing them say. It sounds to me that you're feeling, and, it sounds to me you're really fired up about this. And do I have that right? Sounds to me like that you're really angry. It sounds to me like, but checking in to say, am I hearing you correctly, can also be helpful.
Yeah, I guess with that one, it's making sure that our tone and our body language has that curiosity, as opposed to, because otherwise it could be read as being really sarky, couldn't it?
100%, right? I mean, we have chapter 5 of the book is all about your facial expressions and your tone and body language. And the thing is, I assume that if you are buying this book and you're using these phrases, you actually want to have a productive conversation, that you're someone who cares and wants to have a better outcome. Right. But if you go in and use these phrases and your face is saying something different, or your body is all hunched up and, curled up, or your fists are clenched, it's not going to work. Your body language will speak louder than any words that you're using.
Okay, that's quite an interesting one then, because I'm thinking now about the neurodiverse. So some autistic people, and not obviously not all, but some may struggle, two parts really, hearing the tone.
Yeah.
So they might not hear the tone that you're saying, so therefore it just all comes out as maybe aggression or sarcasm, or they themselves may not be able to do tone, read body language, or show a neurotypical body language. So the receiver misunderstands the attention. I'm just wondering whether in your book, do you cover anything for like neurodiversity or something for people to think, oh, I'm getting a response that seems atypical. I wonder if I should therefore change what I'm saying because it might not be understood.
Yeah, and so that's why the words are helpful, right? Because we found it's interesting because we have one of our clients, which is it's a group of very, very smart people, and on this team there are many people with autism. It just happens to be the nature of the work, and they love this stuff. Because they're like, you know what? It is just so helpful to give me some words that I can use. And so, if you give them words like "tell me more," or and it even the word, even if they can't get the interpret the subtext, the words are better than maybe the words that they would have come up with themselves.
Yeah, it's a guideline sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
like a rule book. That makes sense. What about the other areas of dealing with conflict outside? I'm just wondering, I know you said you've written multiple books, whether you cover, I don't know, transactional analysis or the drama trial, because sometimes you kind of need to understand the dynamics of the conflict before you know what phrases to use.
Right. So our the book that we wrote right before this one is called Courageous Cultures.
Oh, I like the title of that already.
It is all about creating an environment of psychological safety where people really feel free to speak up and share their ideas. And, we start with, you've got to eliminate the toxic courage crushing behaviors like shame, blame, and intimidation. And then you've got to create real clarity that be clear that you really do want people's ideas. And then real clarity about what success looks like for your organization. And then showing up really curious and proactively going out and asking people for their ideas and not necessarily just waiting for them to walk through your open door. So again, creating that level of infrastructure. So that book is more for executives and managers and how do we make it safe? How do we create a better, courageous culture so people don't have to be so courageous every day because it feels safe. It doesn't feel like it takes courage to speak up. This is the flip side of that. This is for anyone who has a job. And what do they do in these certain circumstances? So what do you do if your team member is like a coworker is crushing your ideas? What do you do if you're being told you're showing up too negative? What do you do if your boss is a micromanager? How do you handle those kinds of situations? So if you've got managers creating the environment and you're also training people giving them the skills to speak up well, so these really integrate and go together.
I like that because it looks like they would make sense to be brought together because they seem to be bookends.
Yes.
Let's listen to a quick advert.
The Maverick Paradox. Judith Germain is an author, speaker, consultant, mentor, and trainer, and the leading authority on Maverick leadership. She is the founder of the Maverick Paradox, which supports organizations to enhance their leadership capabilities and to help business owners develop and grow their businesses. Judith enables individuals, business owners, and organizations to improve their impact and influence. She is also HR Zone's leadership columnist, and her expert opinion has appeared in national, international, and trade press.
Welcome back to the Maverick Paradox. This is the podcast for the pathologically curious.
So what are they, in your experience, common misconceptions around workplace conflict?
That it's bad. That is the biggest misconception, that we don't want conflict. And on the other side of you really do need healthy workplace conflict, because Conflict means I have an opinion, you have an opinion, I have a view, you have a view, and for some reason we disagree. In that disagreement is where you're going to get innovation, creative problem solving. And I mean, I think about David Dye, who is my co-author of Powerful Phrases for Dealing with Workplace Conflict, is it's very, very different from me. He is my husband. He's my co-author. We run Let's Grow Leaders together. And in almost any situation that we're faced with, we are aligned on values, but our brains work radically differently. And so we are in constant conflict, and our relationship is good. And so why is that? Because we know how to have those conversations, right? So I'm usually thinking about a million ideas running super fast, like we could do this, we could do this. And he's like, whoa. To operationalize this, we need to be able to think about those things. Now, that could be a really destructive situation because, hey, why are you slowing me down? Hey, why do you keep thinking about all these ideas when we got plenty of work to do already, right? But in that is innovation and conversation and prioritization and expectation setting that is very healthy. And so when we work with teams and go into organizations, part of what we do is help them have these conversations. So to clarify expectations, to talk about, does everybody have this shared understanding of success? Are we able to show up genuinely curious in conversations with one another? And building those habits can make such a difference on not being afraid of conflict, but saying, oh, we have a difference here. Interesting. How do let's talk about this difference and see what's on the other side of that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So do the phrases work as well in non-face-to-face environment?
That's a very interesting question. And absolutely. I mean, we have several chapters that are talking specifically about remote and hybrid teams. And one of the things that we have found in the research and in our work with organizations all over the world is that remote and hybrid teams are bringing a whole new conflict, what we call a conflict cocktail, whole new variety of conflict. So you have all the normal things that happen in teams that create conflict, but in remote and hybrid teams, we're seeing a lack of clarity of expectations, a new set of those. So let me give you an example. Say you and I show up for a one-on-one, and I don't have my camera on. So say you're working with me, I don't have my camera on, and you could interpret that like, does Karin not even respect me enough to turn the camera on? What is going on here? And if we don't talk about that, and if we have no expectations of what should happen in one-on-ones, then we could be in a conflict. So suppose I say, hey, we have a work from anywhere policy. So long as you're getting your work done, it's no problem. Okay, well, that is a very broad, unclear. So imagine I say that to you, and you can work from anywhere. Well, then and we believe that we're coworkers, and I send you an email, and the email doesn't get returned. But then you post on LinkedIn that you are at a petting zoo, doing your work, taking a Zoom call, and you're responding to every single comment. Oh, how cute. That's a lovely pony. What's the pony's name? And you're responding, and you're not responding to my email, right? We are going to be in a significant conflict. But it really started with expectations. So expectations of responsiveness, expectations of how you're spending your time, expectations of what you are able to do during the workday on social media. So these are the reasons that this book is so important, not face-to-face, for people who are not face-to-face all the time. Another reason it's really important is we're noticing that there is a bit of a hangover from the pandemic, where so many people are still feeling very isolated. And even people who say, I love working from home, but there is still the in-person that they're missing, and the aftermath of choosing our bubble and do I trust you? And then we've got all the social unrest stuff that's happening on top of all that is putting people on edge. And so these powerful phrases to slow down and say, in your remote meeting, take 5 minutes at the beginning and connect at a human level can make all the difference. So yes, when you're not together, conflict can be harder, but it means that you need to be more deliberate about having the conversations and the words that you're choosing to use.
Okay, I like that. I think that's quite interesting. I'm wondering, we started off with the conversation about being proactive. And I was saying how people tend to run away when there's perceived conflict. How do you think one should address conflicts on a proactive basis?
Yeah. So,
And
we talk about how the most important conversation, the first conversation, the powerful phrases that you need to have with yourself, which is, okay, should I engage in this conflict? Well, why does what I have to say matter? What's at stake if I stay silent? How will I feel if I have this conversation and I've actually been heard? And from there, that can give you the confidence to have the conversation. Now, if you ask yourself those and you're like, it really doesn't matter. Because sometimes you want to be like Elsa, right, from Frozen and just let it go, right? If some conflicts are not worth engaging in. But if you have something important to say that matters, gain your confidence from that why.
I have a feeling that you should always try to surface any objections up front. And I think there are less toxic conflict when at the point of request, you've checked how everybody's feeling and issues and all stuff at the point of request, as opposed to waiting until something doesn't happen the way you want to, or you've done something in a way that somebody else hasn't done to.
100%. Totally big believer in having the conversation. What I'm talking about when you might want to let it go is like, so I'd never put the spoons back exactly where they're supposed to go in our kitchen. And David has just decided that he cares about it. He just moves the spoons. He's like, I'm not going to have this conflict. I'm just going to fix it. And we have too many bigger things to talk about. And, so I think there's little things like that. And that's what I say, like, do you care enough to have the conversation, or is this something you can live with? But you are always better off if something matters, having the conversation, because even if you have the conversation and it doesn't resolve, at least you have data, right? So, and then you get to decide what you're going to do next. And, sometimes you've got to decide, maybe if there's a significant values clash or something, you may decide to quit the conflict, to walk away. But if you never give the person the chance to have the conversation, that's not fair, because you're assuming what they're thinking without actually giving them the opportunity to engage.
That's true. Okay, before we come to a close, is there anything you're sitting there and you're going, I can't believe she did not ask me this? Because if there is, tell us what it is and then tell us what the answer is.
Oh gosh, is there anything you haven't said? One is one of the most frequent conflicts that we see. And it is interesting. It is, my boss is stealing credit for my work.
Oh, that is so funny, because I was with a client where we did a change program, and one of the people actually did raise that up, saying, my boss is stealing my work. What do I do? Yeah. So what do you do?
So the first thing is to show up connected and curious. And because what is on the other side of that often is the boss is not intending to steal the work. They're moving too fast, or so you could say, hey, I really care about our relationship. And I have noticed that in this last meeting, you kept saying I, me, my, when it was talking about this project. And it is really important to me that people know my level of contribution to this. It's important to me in my reputation. It's important to me in my career. I'm curious, what's going on? Or do you think the people in that meeting understand that I'm involved in this? And then
that sounds very aggressive to me.
It depends on your tone of voice. It's interesting. I did. I taught an MBA program for a while, and I taught an elective class called Dealing with Difficult People. There were 60 people in the class, and you had to bring a difficult person as your project because it was a nighttime MBA class. Everybody was working. Do you know that 59 people brought their boss as the problem? And a significant percentage of them were there to talk about my boss is stealing credit for my work. So we worked through how they were going to approach it and using words like that. And it was so fascinating. Most of them came back with it resolved because the boss said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that." Now, because you were giving the boss the benefit of the doubt, by showing up curious about what was happening. Now, some of them probably were indeed meaning to do it, but once they were engaged in this conversation, they fixed it. And so, that's another powerful phrase you can use is, what do you think we could do so that next time we're talking about this topic, you can let people know about my contribution? And so you ask for them to help fix it going forward. And if you address it, because if you don't address it, it's going to keep happening again and again because you haven't gotten to the root cause.
No, I totally agree. We should definitely address it. I guess what I was thinking was, if it was, I suppose again, it depends on the power play and who is the boss. So obviously, there's a big difference if the boss is team leader or some junior manager compared to the boss being the CEO, for example. There might be a different sort of a power play there. And I think for me, I probably would try to surface out the intention. Right. Because it felt to me, that just might be just the way I heard it. It felt to me like it was an assumptive attack on you're taking my credit, where I think I would have led with trying to surface the intention, like, you probably wasn't aware that it felt to me that I think I'd probably show deference to begin with, to open up the intention before I kind of went, well, actually, this is how it may be. Do you know what I mean? But that might be just a circular route, but that's probably...
That works. I mean, we offer a whole list of them that have a variety of...
And it might be a cultural thing as well. It might well be like the Brits do it this way, Americans do it that way.
It could be, and I mean, another one is, this is what it feels like to be me right now, and so just letting people know how it's feeling for you.
Because no one can argue about that. You can't argue that that's wrong. This is how I feel, because it could be like, as you say, you could be saying, when we last spoke, you talked about promoting me or helping me to get ahead, but it feels that I'm undercut here. So, so there's lots of ways that you can take the two themes and put them together. I guess it's kind of like not trying to put someone in a corner as a first stance, because they'll only come out fighting.
Right. And that's why I always start with pull back and say, what is needed in this conversation first? Is it connection? Right. And so, that's what you're saying. Like, how do you connect first before you use some of these other phrases? And, in the book, so you go to the table of contents, you go to your the problem, your acute conflict emergency that you're having, you flip there, and then it'll say, these are connection phrases. This is clarity phrases. So you can pick the ones that you feel like you need most.
I like that. So your book is really like a guide, as opposed to, you don't pick it up from the beginning and read it to the end. You kind of diagnose the problem, then look for the solution in the book. That's what you're saying?
Yeah. So the first section lays the groundwork, right? It sets it up with the 4 dimensions. It talks a bit about the research. It gives you your 12 goats, talks about how you say it, body language and all that. And then the rest of the book is divided into situations, the kinds of people. So, what do I deal with the passive aggressive person? What do I do if, I'm dealing with a bully? What if my boss is a screamer of F-bombs? What do I do? And then gets super practical with giving you some phrases that we know could potentially work. And then you choose the ones that you feel appropriate for the situation and that feel authentic with your communication style.
Okay, now I can see why it would be helpful from a neurodiverse perspective. All right, this was been really good, Karin. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, it's been absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you out there for tuning in to the Maverick Paradox podcast. I'm Judith Germain, your host, and I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation.
The Maverick Paradox Magazine. The Maverick Paradox Magazine is for the pathologically curious. Written by a swagger of socialized mavericks who are divergent thinkers, the magazine tackles the biggest issues affecting maverick leaders today. You might be a business owner or a leader within an organization who wants to have your thinking challenged, to be exposed to a diversity of thought, or to learn from diverse experts in their fields. If so, the Maverick Paradox Magazine is for you. Join the swagger at themaverickparadox.com and engage in the conversation.